Ho, 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 ho. There, we got right stuck it.
Hello, welcome to A24 on the Rocks. I will be your host for the night. My name is Cole William Whitlaw Gibson. Tonight I am drinking some High West whiskey. To my left you have...
What up? My name is Blaze Fitzgerald Ryan the First. I'm repping Dale Earnhardt tonight. I'm drinking water. That's it. Next up
What
we
the
got.
fuck? Last episode you said you would start drinking whiskey.
I got my shit tomorrow, bro. I'm not gonna fucking.
You can have one glass.
You know what?
All right, well, I'll make up for Blaze and his lack of good whiskey. Hello, world. This is Kevin K. Konachek, and tonight I am drinking Eagle Rare Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, aged 10 years, because I can, and I'm classy. Next up, we have...
I'm Eric, and I'm drinking Journeyman Featherbone Bourbon Whiskey, same as last week, because it's fucking great. Up next, we have...
It's Kelly, your favorite co-conspirator and ally.
Yes.
And I'm also drinking that same bourbon whiskey that Eric is.
A24 on the Rocks. So this evening we will be going over the lovely film called The Captive from 2014, starring the dreamboat from Canada, Ryan Reynolds, based in the greatest country, Canada, in Niagara Falls, Canada, Ontario, Canada. This is the best Canadian film that we will be reviewing. And...
Enemy, come on.
Oh, yeah. And
Wow, that's a heck of a statement there, buddy.
I forgot how many Canadian films there are. I'm just happy that I was a part of this one. I missed Tusk, so... As a resident Canadian, I was happy to see some representation and actual locations like Niagara Falls, and they filmed it from the Canadian side, which is the best side of Niagara Falls. But getting into it, The Captive is a story of Matthew, starring Ryan Reynolds. His daughter vanishes mysteriously. His life falls apart. She basically gets kidnapped, and everything basically goes into shambles. About 8 years later, photo surfaces of what appears to be his daughter, and being fed up with the police, he decides he's going to take it into his own hands and find his daughter. With that being said, I would like to, get everyone's, let's do, as old Kelly says, let's do a little vibe check. How did everyone feel going into this movie, and what was their initial reaction during the intro of it? I will start with Kelly, since I'm stealing her piece here.
Fair enough. Slow start. And I liked I think it was right near the start. We kind of start with that opera overture that's going to follow us throughout the whole movie. Love me some opera. Found that interesting. That use of music on top of the scenery that we were given right to start with. It's just a snowy wasteland. My favorite. Pacing was extraordinarily slow and unenthusiastic was the start of this movie for me.
Fair enough. Eric, what about yourself?
I also takes way too long to set the scene, but also, these timelines, man, they were quite confusing. They kept on skipping all over, and they didn't give any concrete, transition from one timeline to another, or, where they were in the timeline. So I, eventually got it, oh yeah, that's where that was supposed to go, but the director/editor did not do anything to help us with that. So that was my vibe check right away.
Okay, so we'll get into the time things a little bit. Kevin, how about yourself?
So much like Kelly, the two things that I noticed right off the bat were the all-white everything, and then, of course, the opera, which was The Magic Flute by Mozart, which is actually a pretty cool opera. As a musical nut, I did a little bit of research, it's a German opera, but when it's basically translated to English, it's a story of the Queen of the Night, who is a villain, so to speak, and it sets her daughter to murder and all of the awful revenge things that are related to it. So whether or not that was a directorial intent, the opera that follows us throughout does have a lot of heavy drama to it as well, and is relatively famous. So I thought that was excellent to get us started from a musical standpoint, but much like Kelly, it was also very slow and drawn out, and I wasn't very interested right off the bat outside of the music.
All right, Blaze, what about you? What was your vibe for this movie?
Yeah, I think what everyone already said is pretty astute observations. I agree with Eric a lot in the fact that The time jumping, especially at the beginning, was extremely confusing. My only point of reference was Rosario Dawson's haircuts, which really helped, and the age of Cass, but the non-linear format was baffling to say the least. I like this movie so much. I watched it twice. And the second viewing, it was phenomenal. All the setups and everything. So, first initial watch, very confused, didn't understand it. Second watch, all the dominoes fell into place.
So this was my first time watching the film. Was this everyone else's first time as
First
well?
time.
Okay,
Yes.
so Blaze
Yep,
is
first time.
virgin.
okay. So Blaze is the only two for he did a back-to-back session. Well, one of my very first notes was about the flashbacks and how the very first flashback they do, there was nothing, and I was like, that's kind of an interesting take. We're like, yeah, Cass. The only thing that you notice is Cass is a different age, and I was like, well, that's a unique way to do a flashback. But then I realized that there was way more flashbacks and flash forwards occurring in like the whole scene, and it became kind of confusing and almost like a jumbled mess on a linear story that could have been told, I think, in a much better way. But Eric, I'll go back to you since you seem to have a strong opinion on it. What did you think about, or dive into the flashbacks, or how did you feel about that in general?
I just, like I was saying, I don't think they had very good transitions, to transition us from flashback to flash forward to present time. Usually when there's like non-linear timelines, there are much better transitions from each timeline. And Quentin Tarantino, he's a guy that uses a lot of non-linear time. But you always know exactly like when you're flashing back or going back to the present. This one, not so much. And so it made me feel like the editor, maybe they shot the movie, they fucked up somehow, and the editor had to jumble it all together. Or, maybe the director and the editor came together and thought, like, oh, this would be much better if we mixed up all these timelines. And I guess my question to Blaze, who watched this twice, was there a reason for the non-linear timeline? Because I don't think it added that much to the suspense for me. So,
yeah, I do agree. As far as like the thriller aspect of it, I don't think it added anything to it, especially when you knew who the bad guy was the first time you met him, which was like the first scene of the movie. The cryptic messaging that Cass told Matthew, Ryan Reynolds' character, when they met in the snow after his Christmas trees were stolen, all that builds up on itself as a way like this gross pedophile ring like entraps girls. So the way that she's practicing her lines, the way that when she's a daughter before she gets kidnapped, she talks about like the difference between tricks and gimmicks.
Gimmicks.
Yeah, and that definitely comes back as like in stronger like themes like theatrically. But as far as like the actual plot, the time skips really don't do anything for me as far as the plot is concerned. I think they all could have done it in succession, and it wouldn't have been like that out of place.
Yeah, so that choice to do that makes me think the director was, he didn't go into it thinking he was going to do that, and he ended up jumbling it all up, which makes me think he didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
Kevin, my man, you got your hands up.
All of what we're talking about right now, I think that it basically confuses the viewer. Like, if you're not paying exactly attention to every single syllable and moment and like taking notes as you're watching this thing, like it confuses the hell out of you. Like, why is the first scene that we see the mom with big dark sunglasses talking to Rosario Dawson, and like it just seemed odd. And I know we beat this to a dead horse, but I didn't like it and it confused me. And if I watched it again, I'm sure it would make sense more, but it wouldn't make it any more suspenseful.
Yeah, Kelly?
My question for all of you, am I better than everyone?
Oh.
I didn't find it confusing at all. I thought that that maybe it was like quick with the introductions for everybody and the timeline was all over, but I didn't find it confusing. And then it kind of slowed down and was more obvious to me when the past and the future was as soon as the kidnapping actually occurs. Then it was super easy to follow. And also your brain instantly knew what all the scenes that it was already given, where those kind of fit in.
Yeah, halfway through the movie, I got it.
I would agree with you 100%.
I would say even sooner than that. And to go off of why I think that they might have made a decision like this, I do think it's supposed to add some suspense. I'll give my thoughts later if I think there was any. But it for like the first time before we meet the cop, the woman who's kind of like leading everything, we know that she is going to go missing because that's how we even were introduced to her face the whole time. And it just kind of tells you, okay, later we're going to go back in the past and figure out something else happened to him. It was like a murder mystery podcast where they start at telling you what happens to them, and then we're going to go back and tell you how that happened.
Okay, so here's my problem with the time jumps, and let's so back to what you were talking about, where I love a good snowy landscape, and I love like good snowstorms and everything like that. But this film takes place over 8-9 years or something like that. And you got all these time jumps back, present, future, whatever, and it's always winter, and it's always a snowstorm, and it's always the exact same setting, and that's what drove me crazy, because granted, Canada, yeah, it's cold, it does get snow, but it's not snow 24/7 all the time. Also, I don't know what landscaper is trying to bring trees to a job site in the middle of a snowstorm. That's just asinine. I don't know what's happening in that whole
it was a setup.
whole bullshit, because no one's fucking buying trees then. But I digress. The biggest thing, my big takeaway was I think they just didn't have a big budget, and they just all filmed it all in fucking 4 weeks or whatever, and they were like, oh, it's always snowing, who cares? I don't know, it bothered me. But going into the environment, how did everyone feel about it being a constant snowstorm kind of shit show? Did anyone actually like it?
I thought it was an artistic choice, and the fact that they consistently stuck with it from top to bottom kind of aided to some of the cinematography for me, because it was truly the backdrop of everything that they were going to do from start to finish. So all of our chase scenes, all of our action scenes, the non-stuff, even the sentimental stuff focused around ice skating. I just thought, in general, I thought that was a cool touch to keep it consistent across the whole board. Personal
I agree with the
preference.
sentiment. I also feel that all of our characters are pretty depressed, and the scene that they're in lends to the emotion that they're feeling that maybe we should be also feeling.
I'm always pro snowstorm. One of my favorite movies is Fargo, so I'm always down for a good snowstorm.
So here, did you look up the movie poster for this film?
Yes.
It looks very, very similar to the movie poster of Fargo.
Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, I'm pretty sure I've seen this before. And I looked up Fargo's and I was like, they're pretty freaking similar.
Yeah.
So the child gets abducted. Ryan Reynolds freaks out, has a breakdown. When the police conduct their interview, what was your initial reaction to how I guess they treated Ryan Reynolds in that situation? I'm interested to see what your guys' thoughts are on that one. Blaze, since you've seen it twice, how do you feel about the portrayal of that interview?
I think it was very, very down to earth and set in how father would actually be treated. I think Scott Speedman was the most wonderful asshole cop that you could have asked for. And it was very reminiscent, because I majored in criminology. I do know that you're always trying to get someone to slip up, and the first suspects are A, the last person you were with, or B, a family member. And Ryan Reynolds met both that criteria. So when he's slipping up on how old she is, what the name of restaurant or the pie shop lady was, they were trying to get him into a trap. And it's very unfair to him, because he's obviously emotionally damaged and at a very weak point, and that's what Scott Speedman was doing. He was really just trying to push him to his limits. So I actually really liked that aspect of it, where it was super grounded in reality of how cops would actually treat, not officially a witness, but trying to get him on edge a little bit.
These are the kind of cops that make people dislike police. That's what I think. He was the biggest fucking asshole, and I mean, he's the kind of cop that would, search you without any reason. He's the kind of cop that is just a general dick to people. And, I get it that the family members should always be questioned first. I mean, and I get that probably cops really do question people that way, but if that's the way people are getting questioned all the time after their kids go missing, we need to think of a better way to police in this country.
Ooh, that's actually in Canada, not the United States. So,
well, yeah, I mean Canada too. I mean,
Country.
Checkmate.
True. I mean, police all over. No,
I agree.
This was written by wasn't it written by an American?
Who cares?
He's Canadian, actually. So I don't know.
Kelly, do you have any opinions on how they were handling the situation?
I appreciate what Blaze said about how the cop went about it, because he really irritated me a lot. I also thought that it was interesting with the other woman who was a cop, whose name I don't remember. She was going into it, she was like, I don't usually interview it grown-ups or like something like that. So I found their playing off of each other was very interesting because it wasn't even necessarily good cop, bad cop. It was kind of oblivious, working on it, asking general question cop, and a-hole. Just like drove him nuts, and it made me feel so bad for Matthew, or Ryan Reynolds' character. And I also think that that scene was like some of Ryan Reynolds' like best acting ever. It's this frustration and are they helping me or are they hurting me? It's a great scene to put an actor in to let them shine, and I think that he really did shine in that scene. The a-hole cop irritated me so much, so I guess he was a pretty successful actor as well.
Yeah, so I definitely was on the side that I hated the interviews and the cops, but with I guess the insight that Blaze brought, I understand, I guess, why they do it, but yeah, it just like it irritated me, and I was just like, these people just fucking suck. And in general, I think like my last comment on this thing was like, is every person in this film just like kind of a piece of shit? But that besides Ryan Reynolds, because that's what it seemed like to me. But going off of Kelly, what you just said about you thinking Ryan Reynolds like nailed the acting, I want to ask, you guys, because at this point in Ryan Reynolds' career, it was honestly, I was reading an article that was talking about how he was on like the cusp of basically just like falling off and not being an actor anymore, because he had several like major flops before this, including like the Green Lantern, that was huge failure. The RPD, whatever that weird Western, not Western. RIPD, that was another like massive failure that happened in 2013. And then he in 2014 takes this role, and the idea was that he was going to take this role as a like low budget film to really get his acting chops back and get his foot back in the door. Obviously he's now gone on to make the Deadpool and all this other stuff, and everyone loves Ryan Reynolds. But do you think that this movie showed his true range, and he really stood out as a good actor from this film and kind of saved himself? So Kevin?
Yeah. There's many scenes throughout this film where I found myself just like being in awe of some of the emotion that Ryan Reynolds was able to portray. Even from the very first scene when his daughter goes missing, you can feel the panic start setting in on his face as he's walking quicker, or he's moving his arms more, or he's speeding up his speech when he's interacting with people, and I could just feel that panic coming in. And then the scene that we just talked about with the cop, like, he truly had an ability to explain the emotion of what it might feel like to have that happen to you. Not only the initial real emotion, but also what happens 8 years of not knowing anything and the emotion of holding all of that in. And as the scene progresses and as we kind of see all of that, and it comes up to his climax when he meets his daughter, right? Some of the rush of emotions, like even his reaction to his wife at different times, where it was just kind of like constantly getting beat down, and then he just snaps, right? The moment where he strikes the cop, all of these little things, and it was just so refreshing to see him take a serious role and really make me believe in what he was saying, what he was feeling, and what his emotions were throughout the entire film. I just really enjoyed his performance.
Eric?
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds had a great performance in this. He was the one lone bright spot, I think. I think Rosario Dawson was a pretty good actor too, but the pedophile, he was not a very good actor. I don't think the daughter was a very good actor. I think that Ryan Reynolds, he actually really fit this role and took it upon himself to be that guy that, this guy in intense grief for years. He really embodied it, and I give props to him for that. Even though I found many other parts of this film a little disappointing, I still think that he was a lone bright spot for sure.
Fair enough. Blaze, do you have any more input?
Yeah, I think this
on the man that is Ryan Reynolds.
This was Ryan Reynolds. I think he did a better job in Buried, just because he basically acted by himself in that one. When Kelly was talking about the questioning, the way that his face changes between where he's trying to explain himself to, oh my God, they're questioning me, that look of confusion, you don't teach that, that is just amazing. And as you were saying, he was coming off like, films like The Green Lantern and Rip, what I totally forgot about. So yeah, this even though it wasn't a commercial success, I think this movie really just elevated him to the type of actor that we all wanted him to be. As we have Ryan Pattinson simps, we have
Robert Pattinson,
Robert Pattinson,
Jake Gyllenhaal simps. I'm a big Ryan Reynolds simp. So, and I would also like to refute Eric. I think that Kevin Durant did an amazing job as the bad guy. He was the other linchpin in this film that really brought it together for me. So I think he was very good at just playing like the dirty, disgusting child pedophile ring owner that he was supposed to play.
He reminded me much more of a Bond villain than he did an actual, like, real life someone that I could believe was being a pedophile. Like, yes, he was creepy, but it was over the top. It was far too weird. It was never really quite explained.
Where did it go too far?
Yeah, I just feel like, Mr. Bond. It was too unexplained in some circumstances, like with the weird piano stuff and just like the way he was longing after, like, just looking. It just felt unexplained and odd to me. I don't know. Personal preference, right?
Kelly, I want to give you the props for this one. The pedophile, whose name is Mika, what cartoon character did he remind you of?
Bugs Bunny.
He was exactly like Bugs Bunny. It was so fucking weird.
Not necessarily in behavior, but the way he looked and moves through the world is extremely Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, when she pointed that out, I was like, holy shit, this just ruined this whole character for me, actually.
I guess I need to watch the movie.
I need to do a side-by-side comparison.
It's the gray hair, the facial structure definitely is Bugs Bunny-like.
The first viewing I saw, he looked like a knockoff John Waters. So, but no, I think he did great. I think he did a really good job. So,
God, I mean, sorry, I can't control myself. I've had some bourbon, but he was awful, like the worst ever of all time acting that we've come across.
That was
so
the worst
far.
acting.
He was so exhaustingly bad.
How?
It was like amateur community theater. It was, and that is insulting to them because they do a great job. He did worse.
Do you have any specifics, or are we just gonna just say that he sucked? Because that's like,
boy.
I think it's okay for a bad guy to be eccentric, right? Like
the way he talked, he could not. He was muttering all the time.
Yeah, he was a mutterer. He was so rigid, but in like not a real way. It was like he read I don't even know how I want to describe this, like a 200-word synopsis of pedophiles. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I got it. I don't need to do any more research. I feel confident in my abilities. Nobody give me notes. Yeah. And then he just was like, how can I be creepy? Mm-hmm. And then failed over and over. And then they didn't do him any favors by like, you can tell he's creepy because he has a mirror set up next to him while he watches people on video. Isn't he spooky? And he has sorry, I'm going off, but he has this, when he does his, what is the thing that he says when he's like, we have encryption that even God can't reach?
Yeah.
It's like,
encrypted beyond the reach of God.
That's already a really stupid thing to say. And two, you delivered it like an idiot. That was horrible.
Maybe you need to watch it twice.
Can I have this opinion now?
Hey, you know what?
Okay.
Agree to disagree, man. I thought he was really half the movie of why I liked it so much.
Okay. Well, let's just let's move on from this. But I am interested to see what is your guys' reaction on how Cass interacted with him and how she just her overall how she interacted as being someone that had been held captive for 8 years and was staring at a computer screen at her mom cleaning up hotel rooms, I guess, for 8 years. What are your thoughts on how she, I guess, was portrayed and acted? Because I don't know, at least from my point of view, I just felt like it wasn't I guess realistic in the way that she was so together and in one piece and seemed coherent and aware of the surroundings and was just this is I don't know, she just seemed too coherent, I guess, or too together. Just Blaze, would you want to start this one off after your man got dismantled by Kelly?
Dismantled is a strong word. Misinformed, maybe, but I'm kidding. I love you, Kelly. So yeah, so I think the actress that played her kind of bland, but I do think it was supposed to show the effects of Stockholm syndrome and probably the effects of just being in a helpless situation and giving it the best. This is the best life you're going to get, so you might as well make the most of it. She ended up being a recruiter once she turned 18. I thought they were going to do more with that, but she only really the only real thing we got to see was her talk to Rosario Dawson's niece or whatever, and that was just part of another plot point. So I thought the intentions with her character were good, but it just wasn't enough for me as far as either go all in on the Stockholm syndrome and being part of the recruiting, or have her try to escape sequences or something like that. But there was really they tried to meet it in the middle, and that really didn't work for me.
Please, have you ever seen Room with Brie Larson?
No.
It's A24, so we're gonna watch it later. That is the quintessential, I think, depiction of a woman who has been sexually abused and locked in a room. It's, extremely sad. She adds so much depth to that character, Brie Larson does, in that movie. And in this one, I don't get a ton of depth. I feel like we have actors that are playing characters really on the surface. Her and the pedophile, they're very much okay, I'm a pedophile, I'm going to act like, a pedophile, creepy. And then her, she's just kind of I've been abducted, I've been abused, I'm going to act kind of angsty, but I'm not going to provide much depth to my character. And that's how I'm kind of feeling about her in this role.
Kevin, do you have any input on this one?
Earlier I was talking about being a little confused with the time jumps and some of the subtext and plot that was happening, and I was not any more confused, or I should rephrase that, I was the most confused during the times where she was trying to act out his scripts or do something with the questions and the line, with a little bit less, what was it, self-pity, I think is what he said, or something along those lines. And it was just, I didn't get any real depth to those characters at all from those conversations. I couldn't feel what she was trying to convey. Was she upset? Was she sneaking, trying to be conniving and get out of there? It was just, like Eric had mentioned, there was no depth to the character. It felt very kind of loose. And maybe if you watch it again, it might have a different opinion on it from kind of knowing the way that it goes. But there was no point in time where that actress really, I went, that was good. Great line or excellent, scene or something along those lines. I was kind of just, she was there. I honestly liked the kid version better than the older one, as far as just just being innocent and setting up the movie correctly for me. So, but that's that.
I agree completely. Kevin said, oh, well, everybody said it really well, but she's the epitome of the go girl, give us nothing. She fed us nothing to work with. She delivered things in a lackluster way, and amazing that she doesn't seem traumatized after all of the very vague things that the movie wants to tell us happen.
Super vague.
Just fill in the blank, and you can tell what it happened because she tells you nothing through the way that she behaves with anyone or anything ever. So the vagueness carried through.
Right. And half of her lines are scripted, right? I mean, half of the lines come from something that was written for her by somebody else, and in this case, a weird pedophile. There's just nothing.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Eric.
Blaze, since you know criminology a little bit, do cops really just sit in a room and watch child porn together?
All the time. I mean, that was their off time. I'm just kidding.
That's awesome.
But I'm sure that specific task force, if they had a specific task force for child predators, I'm sure they would have to, if you ever seen Chris Hansen To Catch a Predator, I'm sure these adults go on chat sites and they talk to extremely creepy weirdos and they have to see extremely creepy images. It's part of the job. So yeah, I think there's some realism to that. Although one of the weird things, speaking of the cops, the guy who guessed the puzzle, I thought he was gonna have such a bigger role in this.
Oh, yeah. That whole task
right.
force. They were like, they set up. Look at this. We got this task force. We got Rain Man. We got Techno over here. We got all these we got Q from James Bond. We're ready to rock and roll. Ignore them. We're going back over here. You'll see them when the movie's done.
Here's the superhero squad. Moving on.
Yeah.
Bald guy, you're getting shot.
Yeah.
That's all.
They do nothing.
It just seems so weird that there's just a bunch of cops sitting in a room watching child porn, but I get it. That's probably what they have to do to catch people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got to think every time sadly there's a photo or a video of a minor being assaulted and stuff. There could be some evidence or some indicator of where the location is and all that stuff, or personnel. So
and
I could not do it, but good for them.
Before we move on past Super Squad, I think that they only really existed at all to further the relationship between our asshole detective and Rosario Dawson.
Which
I feel like the whole having to make a love story randomly out of those two, because you now have to set the fact that Rosario Dawson's character is a leader, right? She's a respected individual who has a team that loves her. And I'm doing the viewers can't or listeners can't see me, but I'm being very sarcastic with my comments. It was not well done at all.
That Photoshop moment too, put make her ears bigger. Make her cross
her eye.
Didn't he? What did he say that makes her hot or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh
and then immediately connects with the pedophile.
That was weird.
So moving into the police work of this story, I was, I guess, frustrated or confused by the mom because she kept I guess maybe I missed it in this film, but did she not tell the police until after she got the third or fourth clue left in a room for her that's clearly about her daughter, from the brush to the trophy to the tooth, and then the pinwheels is what finally sets her off, and they bring the cops in, and then they immediately just find a camera, and it's I guess my question is, what was the mom doing, or what I guess did I miss something, or did she just keep all of that to herself the whole time?
The timelines were fucking weird. That's where it got a little weird. There was that they kept on going back and forth to her in this room, finding more clues, and then she finally called the cops and called, Rosario Dawson's character, Detective Nicole Dunlop. She finally called her. That's when, towards the end, they finally started putting things together.
I think because they're separated and living apart from each other because of the whole guilt complex and everything, that she's probably not sharing a lot of the things that's happening.
Was that done in one day, though?
She
does.
Her finding all that stuff was in one day, I thought.
I don't think so.
I
No.
didn't.
Really?
Think so.
No, I think it was over a long period.
No,
but
I
she
think it
did
was
tell
split-
Ryan.
okay.
She did tell Ryan Reynolds about the comb, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, that's weird. And that was the entire line.
I think because it was the first present. It was probably just they thought it more of a coincidence than anything, because it was a room that was obviously used already, and it's, how many combs looking like each other? If I saw one of those black barbershop combs, I'd be like, my dad had one of those. He's it's not his. It just looks like it. So the first one could be written off as a coincidence.
I interpreted it that the order of events, if it even matters, would be the one where she freaks out the most, was the last one that we see before the cops are called. But to me, maybe that was the very first thing that she saw, because her child going missing was so fresh that she freaked out the most. And then over time, maybe she just starts, who knows, there's all kinds of other stuff that she's going to see left behind in rooms. Maybe some's an association, maybe some's not. But those ones that we see are specifically the ones that they planted there to get a reaction. Maybe over time, she doesn't react as outwardly towards it, but I do think that the cops finally coming was clearly towards the end of the story.
Okay. Now, going off again with the mom, Kelly, I'll stick with you on this one. Do you think that her feelings towards Ryan Reynolds were valid on, it is his fault and he should, feel guilty and feel terrible for losing their daughter?
Yeah, I do. I think that she might have, this is not projecting, but this is whatever that word is where you diagnose people that you don't know. I think that she has a personality disorder of sorts. Just the way that when they are together, she kind of behaves over the top loving and everything with him. Even they're sitting on the when the kids are leaving the ice rink and they're kind of like leaning against each other, they're cuddling, and she's like over the top, goodbye, goodbye, running away. Like this kind of like childish kind of personality. And then the same thing carries forward when everything happens. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way that you could behave in that kind of scenario, but even as time goes on and she's talking to the cops, it shows you just how quickly her emotions snap, maybe even faster than she knows that it's happening. Goes from hope to you've asked too many questions and now I'm angry. Who knows how anyone would react in that scenario until it happens. And I think that the way that they had that actress act was believable and realistic.
So I guess, do you actually think Ryan Reynolds is at fault though for like his daughter getting kidnapped?
No, but okay. I could understand why she would put all the blame there.
Going back to it's in Canada. They leave their doors unlocked. They're everywhere. He left his car doors unlocked. There was this moment in Bowling from Columbine, the Michael Moore film, where he went over to Windsor and literally started walking around trying to open people's front doors. A ton of them just had their front doors open. I think over there, him having his doors unlocked, it's not as big of a deal. Yeah, I don't blame him though. For that, you can't victim blame somebody when the aggressor, is the one doing the crime. Just because he, the one time he went into a diner to get his daughter pie, he forgot to lock his door. That's just it's an accident. You can't blame somebody for the rest of their life, even though the results were fatal.
So I think we need to look at this from the actress's or the character's point of view, not necessarily what real life maybe dictates in this scenario. In that first conversation they're having in the diner there, where she's wearing those sunglasses and they're kind of talking, and she's talking about how lonely it is in the house, and she mentions that she wants Matthew to feel guilty, right? She wants him to feel that, and she only can rationalize it because it's the only thing that makes sense. He was the adult and responsible for the child, and the child was abducted under his care. Because everything else doesn't make sense. Like, why her? Why in this small town? Why in this situation? Like, why all these gifts? Why all these crazy things? Like, none of that makes sense. But what does make sense is taking out, she can blame someone, right? She can physically focus in on something and it says, your fault. This is because of you. And I think that's real. I think that a lot of people find, excuses or the grudges, right? That term grudge, people hold on to things for years, decades. You talk about siblings who don't talk to each other over something small that happened when they were kids and they just never get over it. And that's a real feeling. And I felt that from this character. So is Ryan Reynolds to blame? Absolutely not. But I can absolutely empathize with that character and feel where she's coming from and why she acts the way she does towards him.
Blaze, any input?
Yeah, I think one of the big heavy themes of this film is grief and how people deal with it. And I think they do a really good job between how Ryan Reynolds is proactive about what happens to his daughter to the point of almost vigilantism, and where his wife, who, again, everyone grieves different. So her initial thought is to blame a person that she can tangibly see, hear, touch, feel, instead of looking at the bigger picture of getting their daughter back. And it's very telling in the way that Ryan Reynolds' character Matthew is proactive in the fact that he's actively looking. I believe in one of the diner scenes, it might have been a separate scene, she was telling he goes on these big road trips and he says he's always looking for her, and she was almost at a mocking tone. Meanwhile, she is more redactive in the fact that she goes to see the cops he said every other week or something like that to talk about the case. So she's relying all the anger and mistrust and all that and all the feelings of loss towards the police as almost as to gift it away her grief, where he's taking on the grief fully and trying to do something about it. So I really feel like how she acted versus how Ryan Reynolds acted was very important to the themes of the film and grief in general of such a traumatic loss.
Moving into the story, so obviously, Ryan Reynolds and his wife, they lose their daughter. Then a photo shows up. They kind of get a glimmer of hope. And through the more investigating and stuff, Rosario Dawson gets more and more involved to the point where she herself gets kidnapped and basically held captive by this ring of pedophiles, or as you eventually find out, they're just called watchers, which is a subsect or something that was thrown in the mix. Do you think that added to the story or kind of diluted it or made it a little bit more convoluted? What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think that aspect, really ramped up the stakes and made it, higher tier, or was that an unnecessary thing to add into the film? I'll start with you, Eric.
I think it would have been better if there was a better resolution. So I guess we're asking this question now. The resolution was it was after already the kind of emotional climax of the film where they ended up finding their daughter again, Ryan Reynolds and the wife. And then it's just kind of like this little montage at the end where they just kind of walk in to see her in the van, and she's just she's looking like she's passed out, from not eating a lot of food. But I also have a question. Both times in this film, when she went missing, they blamed the male cop, Detective Jeffrey Cornwall. They blamed him for not going with her that night, to the ball. The Anything for Love Foundation, which is also a really weird name for a foundation to find kids. Yeah, they blame him, for not going with her that night when she's a female cop who could easily take care of herself. And then obviously earlier we have had all this blame on Ryan Reynolds' character. It's are we always just blaming the men in these situations that kind of accidentally they made a mistake, I guess, or not even that. They didn't know what was going to happen to these women in their life, and they always get blamed for it. I don't understand that point there. Why they kept blaming them?
No, I was just saying we kind of touched on it earlier, why Ryan Reynolds' character is blamed, right? He's the father and the last person, just because he happens to be the man in that circumstance. I don't think we're talking about a gendered situation.
But in this point too, though, they blame the male cop just because he had an argument with his wife and decided not to attend this foundation ball with her.
Well, the only one who's blaming him that I remember is one of the people that was involved in the whole thing.
No, she wasn't involved.
No,
it was
Vince's wife.
Yeah,
sitting at the table.
Yeah, she was just another woman there that was just blaming him.
No, she was involved in the whole thing.
She asked him not to go.
No, the boss's
She asked
wife?
him not to go, and he said, okay.
The boss didn't know anything about that. He was just a dick that night, right?
No, they were all involved. All right, at the table.
They were all involved?
I don't think they were.
When they're at the table and we're introduced to Elvira, you can tell she's evil by the way she looks. And she's there with the drugs ready to go. And Bugs Bunny is there. Bugs Bunny is great friends with Golf Man. That's his dad who brought him up in the business. They're all in cahoots together. So is the wife of that man as well.
Okay, I didn't get that at all.
Because when you come to the table where there's one empty spot, the woman comes down, Elvira, I don't know, Ghislaine Maxwell, whatever we want to call her. She puts down that drugged water, and the wife, maybe we can give her some credit, and she's just oh no, that's not an empty seat.
Yeah.
She points at the water that she sat down and tells her to put it over there where the woman's actually sitting. I thought that
was she was no, you're putting in the wrong, that's
I thought she was telling her to move.
Yeah, she was telling her to move.
Not only that, but
she told her to put the drugged water where the cop is sitting.
I thought she sat...
And the detective tried calling her wife multiple times and never returned any calls. If she was a good, upstanding citizen and cared about where this person was going, she would return the calls to the detective and would have been all over it. But she was ducking him until he actually caught up with the husband, who we haven't actually talked about, Bruce Greenwood, because he was so irrelevant in the whole damn thing. Then he says, well, you probably should talk to the detective.
Well, yeah, he seemed like a dipshit misogynist, and his wife was just trying to be oh shit, this detective got,
All right, here's the other thing. Yeah. At the start of the movie as well, Bugs Bunny and the boss man have a conversation. Sorry, listeners, I didn't remember anyone's names. Hope you know who I'm talking about. And he says something to them you can't treat them like they're your friends, they're your clients. They never talk about what they do really as a business. He's talking about the
welder.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I thought they were talking about their actual business.
He said they're tradesmen.
Yeah, so Bugs Bunny...
Yeah,
Bugs Bunny's Mika, by the way, and Bruce Greenwood was Vince Gray.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
If that was the case, then they didn't do a very good job of clearing that up, I guess. That's what we're finding from this.
Can I
So.
I was under the
No.
impression that Vince Gray was just a misogynistic asshole,
Yeah.
and his wife was just full of
I
it.
thought so
Yeah.
too.
But I could also see that I thought they were going to tie in. I had to dig. I guess I thought there was a chance that Vince Gray was going to be part of the ringleader, which they never expand on the ring. So spoilers: Mika gets shot and killed, and then the ring goes away, and everyone's like, "We did it!" Even though they talk about there's a massive pedophile ring and all that stuff. But I didn't make. I guess I never felt like I got like clear indication that they were a part of it.
Yeah.
Kelly, continue.
I thought that, so going back, that whole scene I thought was an important scene to have. We were talking about if they needed the cop to be kidnapped or not. I think that they did need that. That scene was interesting because these kinds of people in this vague underground CP world, they're the people that might be at a beautiful gala with you. You never know who the ones who profiting off of all of this is, and that's a whole conspiracy theory that is brought up pretty often nowadays, but I think that was needed because you could be eating dinner with people who are into these kind of things, or you could be eating cheese pizza with these people.
Now that's a
I'm
reference.
sending emails about it, but I think that it was important. I think that they did need it. And then Eric said, this was a while ago now, about after the climax conclusion of the movie, then it's like the cops, like the afterthought afterwards, and it just, the energy of that whole ending, poorly executed, but I do think they needed both of these things to go on. It also gave a-hole cop an actual reason to step into gear and help out our main characters.
I just want to
Please.
say, in the version that I saw, that she never got rescued. So I have no idea what the fuck you guys are talking about.
Really?
Really?
What?
They're at the hospital bed where Scott Speedman got shot. So Scott
What
Speedman gets
hospital bed?
shot.
I do remember
And
that.
he's in the hospital
I do
bed.
remember that.
Yeah, he was at a hospital bed.
And Cass says, "Don't worry, I think they're close." And then for
Yeah.
me,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
immediately they show Cass getting on the ice. There was nothing like I don't know what you guys are talking about.
There was a scene where she was in the van and the cops move in on the van and like they
There's
open
like
the
a-
van and she's in there looking like she's food deprived.
It's
And yeah, it was
so
Yep.
right
And
right
wearing
in
near
that
the
red
end.
dress.
Yeah.
In a stunning scene by our best actor, Bugs Bunny, after they kill him and they shoot him and he's on the floor and they say, "Where is she? Where is she?" And he goes, "14th birthday." And it's like he just sits there and stammers forever while he's dying on the floor and says 14th birthday.
I think we
times
saw,
really
I think we
fast.
saw
And
two
that's how they
different movies.
somehow
my man.
find the location of the van.
I think we saw two different movies.
No, there.
Hey, no, we've got super cops. Remember,
No,
super
please,
friends.
there's
We
like
talked about
literally
this already.
it's maybe 30 seconds
Yep.
right before Cass gets on the ice. I just went back and looked it
I'll
up.
go back and look it up.
and
The
if-
version I saw,
Did you watch it? I watched it on Showtime.
Eric said
That's what I
Eric
watched.
said lack of resolution. I was going to correct him and say there was no resolution.
It's at
No,
it's
they-
at timestamp 146:45 if you want to look it up.
I'll re-look it up, but
Yeah,
I swear to God,
but-
I've seen this movie twice now. It's not like I like.
Well, not very well, but
Blaze, in your version, did they have better acting?
Yeah, clearly.
okay,
Yeah.
So
That
Bugs,
must be the difference.
yeah, so Bug,
And Mika never said 14 or whatever.
yeah, okay, yeah, he does. He gets shot, and the cop's like, "Where is she? Where is she?" And he's like, "Her 14th birthday. She's in a van." And then he dies, and then they like instantly they're like, "Van, we know exactly where she's at." They never mention it. Don't talk about it ever again until like towards the end, right before Cass gets on the thing. There's just a bunch of cops, and they roll open a door, and we're like, "She was right here the whole time.
Got
We
her.
found her."
I feel like the director was like, let's flip a coin. Heads, she lives. Tails, she dies. And they had no time to film it, so it was, heads, she lived, and they had to film it. And that was weird. It was bad. It
No.
was just bad.
So we got on a little bit of a tangent there. But, so obviously at the end, the bad guy dies. They save Rosario Dawson. Cass gets saved. The family reunites. And you see her getting back onto the ice, and it's like a big climactic of, oh my god, she's going to learn how to skate again, or she's going to start skating again. My question to you guys is, do you think she could still be good enough to skate with that other boy? Or is her career over and he's stuck skating solo?
It's over.
Yeah, I don't think she can be the amazing figure skater she was once promised to be. But yeah, I mean, the end is just her back on the ice. I don't think she's supposed to be back in her career. Yeah, she's definitely forever messed up from this whole experience. And
she seemed fine.
I mean,
yeah.
She drove me crazy, but she seemed fine.
Yeah, she did kind of seem fine. That's the thing. I agree there. She seemed kind of fine at the end, which is she's smiling. I guess okay. She's,
listen,
she can
skating on the ice, and she's allowed to smile. They didn't really do much to show how she might be forever screwed up from this, which is part of Rosario Dawson's speech at the Anything for Love Foundation. She's like, these kids never have a happy resolution. So
yeah, this one did.
I did find it weird that her ice skating friend just wasn't there in the end. Even if he was just on the sidelines, they didn't even have to be near each other. Maybe we give it credit and she has some kind of trauma against being around people. I'm sure that they didn't think about that. Maybe they did. Maybe I'm done. Maybe I'm being dumb. But they should have had some resolution between these two.
Well, I think they give him the credit, right? Because without him, he doesn't follow the van and find them and find it. So he's the driving force, and maybe that's where the daughter's go look at him because it's the gimmick thing, and that's why. But that was even poorly done. What was that line supposed to give the viewer?
Before we move to ratings, this film, the director must have really not like cops, like Canadian cops, because Ryan Reynolds literally just did the whole fucking investigation for them and, was the only person that, was actually catching on to leads and the only reason that this guy ended up getting captured. Yeah, they did the footwork at the end, but Ryan Reynolds, he tracked them down. He actually did the police work the whole time, while these other Scott Speedman was just a dick the whole time, and, yeah, he did the footwork, but he ended up getting shot. So he, not a good cop.
Yeah, but we didn't see Ryan Reynolds do a single puzzle.
Okay,
and that super team.
Where's Puzzle Man?
Ryan Reynolds had none of the resources that all those people did. Yet he was the one that ended up putting the phone in the car and finding them at this diner because he knew that those two would probably end up talking to his daughter's figure skating partner. And he knew what to do to stick around this situation. He never gave up on it, and he followed the leads correctly. And he was the guy that actually ended up solving this. So yes, the police did the footwork in the end, but he was the guy that actually solved this whole thing.
Why was creepy wig lady talking to the figure skating boy in the first place?
It was to get a video. Sorry, I already answered one of these things. Blaze, you can answer this one.
Sure, I'll go ahead. So the guy in the sting operation, which Rosario Dawson caught him in at the diner, he said that he wouldn't rat on the ring if they captured Rosario Dawson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but what they like to do, and they explain this through the film, is that they like to bring out everyone's lowest points, biggest insecurities, so they can break them.
Yeah.
So he wanted Rosario Dawson to break.
They're watchers.
Yeah.
They like watching the victims.
So they were going backwards to all her traumatic cases, and the reason why she talked to the little figure skating friend was because they wanted to get information about what makes her tick, what makes her fearful, and she was doing it under the guise of a reporter or something.
My understanding was that what's the girl's name? Cassandra. Cassandra is doing her best to manipulate Bugs Bunny instead, and so she gives her dad a clue about where to look and manipulates Bugs Bunny to say, I need inspiration. Wasn't the best thing I ever did after I watched that video of my mom. I need inspiration again. Go to my old ice skating partner, ask him questions, show me a video. So then she's like, okay, Elvira, my clearly evil henchman, get out there and get a video, bring it back.
Oh, and okay,
real quick aside. I did like the touch that we clearly got the impression that this Elvira character, I don't know what her real name was, abused kid from her past. That was another victim that had turned what Cass could eventually become if this, doesn't get rescued. And I did like that, appreciate that little touch. Like, she didn't have a choice, and in the end, she's the patsy, and she dies because of it, and it was all because of the abuse cycle, and that was just like, ooh.
All right. Does anyone else have any closing remarks or anything they want to discuss before we get to the ratings? Nope. All right.
No, let's do it.
Let's hop into our ratings for The Captive, 2014, starring Canadian heartthrob Ryan Reynolds. I will start with Blaze so we can go from the top to bottom. He'll be our highest. I have a feeling.
You have a feeling?
It, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I just really love this film. From the acting to the setting to the theme. You didn't ask me the setting question. I love the snow. I thought that was one of the coolest chase scenes I've seen in a movie in a long time. With the snow peel outs and the guns, and he crashes, but the cops are there. Oh man, chef's kiss. Ryan Reynolds was a real tour de force in this film. Kevin Durant, who was Bugs Bunny, Mika was his character. I felt like he did a fantastic job. I thought Rosario Dawson and Scott Speedwell were great as supporting actors. As Kevin previously mentioned, the opera aspect was kind of cool. I'm not that musically toned, so I'm glad that we have someone here to explain that, who did the operas and stuff like that. And yeah, I just thought it was a really fun, enjoyable, tenseful thriller. And that's, I think, exactly what it was supposed to be. The kidnapping formula has been time and time again. So anytime you get a new spin on it, I really appreciate it. As far as that goes, the only knock that I have to this movie was the nonlinear timeline, because I really don't think at the end of the day it made that big of a difference. So at the end of the day, I am going to give this a B+ 24, and I'm probably going to watch it again in the next couple of years. And yeah, I just really like this movie. So good job, Adam.
All right. I'm going to hand it off to Kelly, because I think we're going to go to the bottom now. Just a feeling.
He's trying to make me and Blaze fight. We don't really want to fight. We like each other. Okay, the non-linear aspect of the story is the most interesting part, and the part that I enjoyed the most, and the thing that I think makes it set apart from anything else kind of in this genre. Ryan Reynolds was the star, and the further we stray from his light, the darker things become. He did awesome. Everything that he was involved in was great part of the movie. But the further that we got from any scene with him, the worse things got as far as the story, as far as the acting, as far as the cheesiness, as far as they're covering such a heavy topic. And I think that they don't do it any justice when they shy away from how gritty it could be. And maybe that's just because they want to appeal to a broader audience. But then this shouldn't be something that's just entertainment value. And that's how it kind of felt for me, which just made me feel kind of icky. If you're going to do a movie about something like this, like, be clear on what the focus is. Is it the emotional impact? Is it the way that the cops are? I don't feel like they fully fleshed out or explored anything like this. Or do you want to talk more about the ring itself and how things work and how to do something about it? I don't know. I feel like it should be a call to action, not just something to gawk at and to poorly execute, in my opinion. The music, I think, was also oddly fitting in a lot of spots and not in a way that I thought was intentional or to make me feel uncomfortable. It just felt unfinished, unsettled, not in an intentionally unsettled way, too. With that, I think talking about it made it a little better. D+ 24.
Okay. Let's go to Kevin next.
Yeah, I want to follow that. That was incredible. So Kelly said a lot of things that I feel throughout this entire film. I honestly felt, for the most part, that it was an over-detailed slog that was hard for me to follow, and I didn't really have any investment in any character outside of Ryan Reynolds. I don't think that it was particularly tense in parts. I don't think that it was particularly compelling, and like Kelly said, it took a very serious subject matter and not made light of it by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly did not delve into it or show the sides that a viewer really would want to get out of watching a film like this. I did enjoy a lot of the cinematography, the soundtrack. I did enjoy the snow and the scenery, like we had talked about. The Niagara Falls and the hotel shots were excellent, with the huge bay windows and looking out into the scene as the falls are falling in the background. And just in general, I enjoyed some of the scenery. But It really felt like it was slow paced. I made a comment that the first interesting part for me happened at 55 minutes, and the next one happened at like an hour 45. Like there was only 2 parts where I was really truly like, wow, what could happen here? And the rest played out for basic viewership. In the end, I probably wouldn't recommend it to anybody else other than to say Ryan Reynolds did a really good job. If you like him, watch this, because he should not be minimized in my review whatsoever. He absolutely was fantastic. He deserves all the praise we've given him for this. If you liked him in Deadpool, this is anything not like him at all. It's completely different, but it reminds you that he is a really, really good actor and someone that you should give the time to. At the end, I'm going to give this a C plus 24 because of Ryan Reynolds and the backdrop. But other than that, there really wasn't much to it.
All right, Eric.
All right, so I'm going to use the start of this to just kind of pick out one more part of this film I really didn't like. How the fuck would someone set up a bunch of Christmas trees on a road in sequential pattern across a whole highway and no one would notice them? How the fuck would that happen? I'm so confused. When I saw all those Christmas trees right in a row leading up to where this guy was just hiding behind a little wagon where his daughter was, I was just so angry at that. Anyway,
it was on a closed road.
Yeah, it was a highway.
Well,
it was
after the highway,
but it was like in Niagara Falls, Ontario, which is actually, there's people that live there. It's not like a completely desolate wasteland.
Yeah, he had 8
hours on a
hours.
side road and stuff. And I did count all of the trees. There were 20, and there were actually that many trees on the wagon. So I was happy with the consistency there because I did not believe that was going to be the case. So,
well, either way, I generally agree.
You better give it an A now.
No, I still think that was on a highway, leading up to a side road. Either way, I generally agree Ryan Reynolds was a one saving grace for this film, and it saved me from giving this film a poor grade due to the shitty timeline resolution there. And also just kind of the other bad actors in this. The pedophile and the daughter, I did not think do a great job. Scott Speedman, he was okay. Yes, he made me hate him as a cop. I also think there were points where I don't know, he just didn't deliver it for me. There was that one point where I think he asked Ryan Reynolds something about his past, and he's like, somebody from your past? This is the present. There were several points where I kind of cringed, and I don't know. Overall, I think this film could have been much better if the timeline was right in a row. If they actually just had a normal timeline. I don't think the messed up timeline added anything to it, and that, in fact, became a great detriment to it. I could have even gotten over some of the bad acting if the timeline was more concrete. That being said, I will give this a D24. I really think that this film got dragged down by a lot of the bad stuff that I just said.
All right, so D's across D and a D plus for the Kiska gang over there. So I will give my 2 cents. So again, as the resident Canadian, I will have some favoritism and bias, and I am not ashamed. That being said, this is an hour and 52 minutes, making it one of our longest A24 films that we've watched. It's also rated R, and I feel like you guys alluded to, it never caught that A24 niche, and it never dove into crossing that line of this is reality of child pedophilia and how terrible it is, I would expect from an A24 film that tends to cross those boundaries and doesn't reserve anything. It's going to show you what it is, kind of thing. And for a 2-hour film rated R, it did none of that. It never dove deeper into, really, it just stayed, it was a very surface, felt very void of a lot of depth, and it felt like there was a lot of story that was just added and not dug into more. I think they should have just focused on the daughter and her being captured, and then finding her and make it a linear timeline like you guys talked about. We don't need to have Rosario Dawson kidnapped. If you want to talk about the pedophile ring, maybe actually make it a part of the story and not just say that it exists and never talk about anyone else really involved with it, or dive deeper into, maybe that other people of power are in it and stuff like that, but they never really dove into that. However, it's set in Canada. I love Canada. Niagara Falls is one of my favorite places. Been there many, many times. The U.S. side sucks. You got to go to the Ontario side. Ryan Reynolds is a dreamboat. He is a phenomenal actor. He wears a Carhartt hat at one point, which is another amazing thing from the Michigan residents here.
Yeah.
He drives a Ram F1 or Ram 1500. I also am a Ram man, so there's a lot of good things stacking up in this film. Overall, I would recommend this movie to I wouldn't say necessarily my mother, but almost like the mom of the world, where they're like, I'm gonna watch a movie that's kind of edgy about with Ryan Reynolds and this scary sex crimes and all this stuff, but never really dive into it, and it's all just very surface, and you don't actually feel any of the terrible stuff. They never mention it once. That's all just whatever bullshit. So with that being said, I'm going to give this one a C plus 24. I will not recommend it to anyone that actually likes A24 movies, but with the Canada representation and everything, you got to give it that Canadian C plus, baby. With that being said, does anyone have any closing arguments or statements before we're done?
Yeah, where's the Puzzle Man movie? I want that. A24, get on that.
Yeah.
Turns out that
Super
Puzzle
Friends, whatever
Man,
we
he
called
becomes the Riddler in the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. So real dark twist there. Yeah, he watched a lot of child pornography and get real fucked up, and it was
canonical.
Can't tell if you're kidding or not, and that's pretty cool.
But other than that, I appreciate everyone's time.
I have a question for you, Cole. Why is the Canadian side so much better? Why did the American side?
Yeah, you have to defend
so
this.
Well, no, I
if you
agree
look at-
it is, but why did they
if you
make
look
it
at-
like that?
Well, it's just the way that the boundaries were divided up. Niagara Falls kind of has two sides to it, and the horseshoe side is on the Canadian side. And that is the big, massive one that everyone thinks about when they think about the Niagara Falls. But the U.S. is kind of just a side where it's divided a little bit.
I kind of wondered that when I went as a kid and looked at it, and that's not what it's supposed to look
so,
like.
and
now that you
granted,
say that, it makes perfect fucking
the
sense.
U.S. side has the very cool bridge to nowhere land where it kind of extends halfway out, and you can go out and look. Doesn't actually cross, but if you're gonna go to Niagara Falls, just go to the Canadian side. Do the Maiden of the Mist and all that stuff, and they even have a tunnel that goes to the back side of it. It's pretty dope. But yeah.
I did the American version of Maiden.
Yeah, well, got to go to the Canadian side. Everything's better on Canada. Granted, there are no there might be a casino. There's more casinos on the U.S. side, and you get free drinks at casinos. It's illegal in Canada.
They also got the revolving restaurant on the Canadian side.
Yes, they do. Yeah, it's very overpriced and very mediocre food, but it's a cool experience.
I was 9 when
I've done it.
I was 9 when it happened, so I don't remember it, but I just I have pictures.
Yeah,
You gotta do it once.
Yeah, and if
listeners, if you guys are still listening, thank you so much, and don't forget to rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcatcher. I'm asking you right now because you are the most engaged listeners, and I can't thank you enough for listening this far.
Wow, yeah.
You the best. We love you all.
A24.